Oh, hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show, coming at you every Wednesday from Majority Towers, and on YouTube and Facebook and on Twitter, now called X. Thank you for joining us. I'm here tonight. I'm the co-host. I'm the host, actually. I'm Mark Devlin, and I'm here tonight with my co-hosts, Mary and Mark Zegfeld. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm great, thanks. It's been an interesting week so far.
Right, very good. And Mary, how have you been?
I'm very well, thank you. Yep.
Right, okay. Well, that's all good, isn't it? Right, so what we're going to be talking about tonight, Mark?
I'm going to talk about the winter fuel allowance and the spin from the SNP.
Right, okay. And Mary, what have you got for us?
Well, tonight I'm going to be talking about Scotland's soaring deaths from alcohol and how the Scottish Government is denying this evidence that minimum unit pricing doesn't work.
Okay, and we're going to all be talking about the Salmond versus Sturgeon documentary that's been broadcast these past couple of days, and the fallout and repercussions from that.
And of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
Right, okay, so we'll be back in a moment with all that and much more. Talk to you in a second. Right, welcome back to Scotland's number one politics chat and discussion from a anti-nationalist perspective. I'm the host, Mark Devlin. We're here every Wednesday. Our Majority's aim is a thriving Scotland without the toxic nationalism that is strangling Scotland's potential. The SNP may be on the retreat, but nationalism is still here. Whether it's here to stay or not is a different matter. But we hope that you will join with us in trying to get rid of it whenever it appears. Okay, I'm here tonight with Mark Zegfeld and Mary Devlin. Huge thanks to our friends, UK Union Voice and United Against Separation Facebook pages from where many of you are watching tonight.
And remember, sharing is caring. The number one thing you can do is to like the show on YouTube. Even if you don't subscribe, please drop a like. And if you can subscribe, please do so. Increase our reach at the click of a button. And as usual, I'll be managing all the comments tonight, so please keep them short and snappy, and I'll try to put as many up on screen as I can.
Right, very good, Mary. So we'll just get right into the news of the week. Just to let you know, Mark will be talking about the winter heating payment a little bit later, and Mary will be talking about alcohol deaths, and of course, as we will have Zoomers. But first, it's a tale as old as time itself. The student becomes the master. And then tries to get the master put in jail on trumped-up rape charges, allegedly. At least that's how it goes in Scotland. This week, the BBC broadcast a 2-hour-long documentary about Alex Salmond and Nicholas Sturgeon's soured relationship called Salmond and Sturgeon, A Troubled Union. The show interspersed stories of their careers and partnership with interviews about their fallout. So, if you haven't seen it, this is a wee clip reel, gives you most of it. It's a couple of minutes long.
And I are no longer in speaking terms, and I seriously doubt if it's going to improve. Now that's a great pity because I didn't indicate that you shouldn't say anything's forever, but that's the way it looks, and that's just the way it's going to be.
One of the hardest things about the breakdown between me and Alec is the fact that so many of the best moments of my life he is so integral to, and it's hard now to look back on them with just unalloyed pleasure and joy. I switched on my phone after landing in Jersey, where I'd travelled to for a British-Irish Council summit. I switch on the phone and I see Russia Today, and and what are you thinking?
I hold no brief for the Kremlin, nor am I required to have.
I thought the combination between her being the First Minister and Peter being the Chief Executive was going to cause great difficulty. Not necessarily when things are going well, but as soon as things went badly, it was going to be a relationship which the press would exploit.
Peter had done the job as Chief Executive a lot longer than, way before I'd become First Minister, and You know, I think if the gender roles had been reversed and the idea women had to step down from their job because of their spouse's role, that would have looked odd. The option of a second referendum must be on the table, and it is on the table.
I have to say I was nervous because I was still concerned by how we were able to motivate people in Scotland when we had just had one in 2014.
I was reasonably confident that I'd set us on the right course, but it was a course that was at that point out of step with the public mood.
Oh, well, there then, that gives you an idea. If you haven't watched, that's probably most of the highlights there. As I said, it was that type of kind of talking heads interview interspersed with a history, actually, of the rise of Salmond and also the rise of Sturgeon, first of all, independently, and then once they made their union, as the show said. Mary, now, what was your impression of that part, that the rise of those two?
Well, it was quite educational for me, actually, because, as you know, we were living in Japan and USA that whole time when all of that was going on. We left in 1990. The SNP were a bit of a joke party, still are. Anyway, but so the first time we were really, I guess, became involved in what was going on was the referendum in 2014. And at that time, I was really scared that we might lose our British nationality. I didn't know what was going to happen then. And then we were kind of shocked when we came back in 2016 about how many people had been taken in by nationalism, by the SNP, by Sturgeon, and all the false promises. People were being led down the garden path and taken for idiots. Things had really, really changed in the time that we were away, but I'd never really seen anything to show, what had happened in the meantime. Of course, I'd piece bits together in my head, but so I thought it was quite good from that perspective, showing what had happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true to some extent. We when you're overseas and you hear the news, you only get bits and pieces of it. To actually see it unfold like that, you actually like, well, how did these people actually get this type of success? It didn't really go into that in huge detail. It just kind of said the success came to them, really, and they took advantage of it. Mark, you were here during all these years, so I mean, what was your feeling as you saw the SNP grow in popularity?
Well, I think Salmond had a lot to do with how they grew. I think it was his leadership, and no matter what you think of the man, he did grow the SNP to the party that took power in Scotland, and I'd begrudgingly have to give them. Give him that kind of a credit for doing that, but and with a weak UK government who gave a referendum in the first place, which I don't think we should ever have done. I think it was the worst decision going. But it did grow the party, and it did grow the party. But now, as we see, it's starting to fall to pieces under first Sturgeon, Humza, and now Sweeney, who I found what I found about that clip is two things. Is Sturgeon saying out of step, I tried to get a second referendum, but I knew it was out of step of the public. So she's admitting that it's not what we wanted. It's not what the majority of Scotland wanted.
Yes.
So she's admitting that she knew that. So why carry on down that path? And Sweeney saying he was worried about asking for a referendum so soon after 2014. Why didn't he speak up? Why didn't he speak up?
He probably did speak up, but maybe there wasn't a better strategy for them. I think that's where it comes down to. I mean, what were they going to do? Were they going to... I mean, they should have knuckled down and say, look, we didn't win this referendum, but in 10 years we have a chance to show through good governance that we can do this. Right, that's what they did, but they didn't do that. What they did was they went out the door saying Westminster's to blame for everything, and we're great people, and we deserve everything, with no effort actually putting into to improving the country's thing. And now we're in a situation now where the whole thing has fallen apart because we're basically lazy. lazy people, I think, came down to. Now, whether Salmond would have taken a different strategy
Well,
or not, it's difficult to say.
the thing I noticed about Salmond on the show was that he did say that, you know, they were going for a referendum, that he recognised that they had to show that they could govern Scotland better.
Yes.
But that Holyrood could be better than what Westminster would do. So he firmly believed that. But the problem is that when he resigned straight after the referendum and then Nicola Sturgeon came in, that's not the way she saw things. She didn't see running Scotland better as part of their policy.
No, that's true. And we're with the result of that. And we'll be talking about that through the rest of the show, where we talk about more and more articles actually coming out now, just saying what a failure the SNP have been in government. Now, I've said this many times, when you elect people, when you turn away from people's competence and just vote for people and elect people based on their ability to blame Westminster, is it any surprise that when you're at the end of years of doing that, that you're left with a bunch of people who just who have been blaming saying a big boy did it and ran away, and then nothing, everything's got incompetent people. We can talk about that for a long time. Right, let's go back. Now, the main core of the thing, of course, was the fallout between Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon, and I felt it didn't really go into it in as much depth as I would have liked there. Certainly from 2020, when we were here, this was at the main part of Scottish politics. And now at that time we had the Me Too movement, which was a kind of moral panic. It was in full swing. It seemed that every powerful man was a target because they may have abused women in some way or abused their power over women. That's a better way to say it. For example, Harvey Weinstein, the movie producer, he would ultimately be sent to prison for rape. However, actually, despite all that, and I mean, it was a whole worldwide phenomenon. Basically, there's a number of successful prosecutions is very low. I looked up before the show, maybe 15 high-profile cases in the United States alone, and how many here? Very few indeed. But desperate to get on any kind of bandwagon to prove her feminist credentials, I say feminist here, feminist credentials, Sturgeon's government instituted a policy to investigate any claims of sexual harassment. Most notably, the policy was written to include former ministers. Oh, well, I wonder who that could include. She did this, of course, many believe, knowing that Alex Salmond had a history of inappropriate behaviour. This was the famous Sleepy Cuddles incident, where after a few drinks at Butte House with a female civil servant, he said, "We lapsed into a sleepy cuddle across the bed with our feet on the floor. We were lying side by side in a huddle." Not quite Rabbie Burns, but a cuddle in a huddle. But anyway, according to the woman who is subsequently named as Woman F in Salmond's criminal trial, it was something different. She said that she claimed that Salmond had suggested they go upstairs to the bedroom because it was warmer. She said it didn't seem to be unreasonable, and she agreed, but that when they were in there, Mr. Salmond started to drink quite steadily from a bottle of Mutai alcoholic spirit that had been given as a present from China. She claimed that she then felt somewhat uncomfortable when Mr. Salmond asked her to take her boots off, adding, "But it was a request from the First Minister, so I complied." That's a bit of a weird one, I have to say. Anyway, Woman F said it was late at night and she'd gathered her papers before attempting to walk to the door, and she felt rising panic when the First Minister told her to get on the bed. But this was very much inside a working environment and culture where you do whatever the First Minister asks of you. The witness then said she sat primly on the bed and could not remember exactly what happened for the first few seconds, but then the First Minister was lying on top of me. He put his hands under the skirt of my dress, ran them over my thighs and my bottom, and he was rubbing his hands over the bodice of my dress and over my breasts. He was kissing me around my face and dress haphazardly, like someone who'd been drinking quite heavily.
This is like some kind of Jilly Cooper. Is it Jilly Cooper?
Yes, and was murmuring something like, "You're irresistible, Mary."
Yes.
Does this kind of thing happen to you a lot?
Oh, I can't say, Mark. You know, my boss is you, so what can I say?
Right, now what do you think of
And
this?
I know how to, ward off your advances in a couple of seconds,
Okay, maybe they should
If
be
that
talking
doesn't
too
work
much about that.
slap around the face. But
Yes,
honestly, this whole story is regiculous. And basically without a shred of credibility. Her, I would say that her explanation demands a level of naivety which is beyond believability. You don't just go to a man's bedroom to be warmer. It's like, come to my bedroom, it's warmer. It's like, well, why don't you heat the living room instead? You know, throw a log in the fire or turn up the 2-bar fire or whatever you've got. Every woman understands when she's heading to the, why you're heading to the bedroom. And you certainly don't go on the bed because you were told to by your boss, unless that's what you want to do, of course. All you have to do is make an excuse and leave. I mean, it's not that difficult. Now, I mean, of course, at that point, if he'd like held her down or, restrained her or something like that, then yeah, definitely. But it's really not that difficult to make an excuse and leave. I mean, basically, this is a grown, responsible woman. She's not some naive little, teenager.
Servant, yes. Well, we don't know. Of course, this is one of the issues with the whole situation. We don't actually know who it was, although there are,
although we do.
people who say they know who it is. It's actually illegal would be illegal for us to mention that. We'd be going to the jail as well, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about that earlier. But it doesn't actually matter. Well, go ahead, Mary.
I was just going to say, women know how to fend off men at that level of persistence. Right. If they need to or if they want to.
I don't think there's that much. To my reading of it, and this is what came out in court actually, to my reading of it, it wasn't so much. It seems a little bit like there wasn't much forcing going on. It's so whether it's an abuse of power or not is a different matter. You come to my lair a bit like that. Mark, you any quick comments on that on this part, because we'll move on.
Yeah, I think the story doesn't really rack up, does it? I think what Mary said was absolutely correct, so 100% correct. Did he abuse his power? Probably. I think that's pretty well known.
I don't think that's an abuse of power.
No, but I think he used his position as First Minister to not bully, but lord it over people. And I do think, from what she said, he was the First Minister. I had to do what I was told, and I think that was the way. I think that's a look into the way he dealt with people and the way he handled his leadership.
I know, Mark, but we are talking about people who are like, if you invite a woman as a man, you invite a woman to your bedroom, I mean, you're trying it on straight up.
Yeah,
right? And every woman knows that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I have worked in all male environments. I mean, I worked for making cars at Ford, and I've worked in in London in male environments. It's like, even if it's your boss, even whoever it is, director in the company or whatever, it's like how to say to make an excuse and get out of it.
Right, but anyway, it doesn't actually matter what we think of it. To be honest, I mean, that's just a kind of a idle discussion there, because the woman F actually said that Salmond apologised. So in court, she said that some days later, she had a meeting with Salmond at his office in the Scottish Parliament, during which he told me he was sorry for what had happened, that had been unacceptable, that he'd been drinking more than usual, not just that night, but in general due to stress. He said he respected me and wanted to keep working together, and apologised. I accepted the apology, confirmed we would keep working together. I remained in the post and did not experience any other behaviour from the First Minister that I considered inappropriate in the rest of my time in that post. Now, this was later pushed as an attempted rape by woman F in the court case. The claim, of course, was rejected by a jury, along with 12 other charges. So some were not only, I think that one was not proven, and the rest were not guilty. This was the thing, I think, here, that we had this situation where Sturgeon, or at least her people around her, knew that Salmond had been involved in this situation, and they elevated that right through, first of all, to an inquiry, then through to a criminal complaint, and that this was, Salmond then said, of course, this was a conspiracy to damage him, and if it had succeeded, Salmond would now be in the jail and would probably likely die in jail. Harvey Weinstein, something like that, or at least be fighting for his freedom for an endless time, whatever. So, Mark, first of all, what was your impression of the case as it came up? And then we'll talk about, do you really think Salmond was a threat?
Yeah, I think the trial itself, I think everybody saw through it as for what it was. I think it was quite obvious that it was a political attack, and it was quite obvious that they were trying to get him jailed. But but we have to admit, he's not a saint. There's no way, he's not a saint. He's not completely blameless in this. But did he deserve what he got? No, he didn't deserve that. And I think that's what comes out of it. I think that was he could have lost his life. He could have lost his freedom over this, and I don't think that should have. I don't think it should have gone to court, in my opinion, from what the evidence showed.
Yeah, well, some of the, I mean, when you look at the complaints, some of them are really just like, what's it called? Touching someone's face or something like that. Touching their hair. Oh, that's sexual assault. Well, it seems a bit of a stretch, really. Anyway, I think to some extent we have to look from this though from Sturgeon's perspective. It does kill two birds with one stone. This whole thing neutralised Salmond as any kind of rival, because there was always that thing: is he going to come back? He's a strong personality. He had come back before, being the first minister in the early 2000s, and he had come back, and then he was, perhaps he wasn't too happy. I'm not too sure if he was in Westminster or back in the Scottish Parliament at that time. So she was, neutralised the threat, but also burnished her feminist credentials. Seems though, I mean, I don't know if you agree with this, but Sturgeon, when she talks about feminism, it seems to be more of an anti-men type of thing rather than a pro-female thing. She never did actually implement any legislation that was for that would be seen to be feminist, which was a feminist criticism that J.K. Rowling levelled at her. And J.K. Rowling, of course, famously took her to task and is still doing so on trans issues. For example, and so there's this kind of weird thing where she hopped in this bandwagon to try but also kind of let her also destroyed her political rival. Now, in the documentary, it was quite something to see Sturgeon and Humza talk about how upsetting all these revelations were. They're going,
they shouldn't have started them then.
They're going, it's terrible. They're going, this is terrible. He's a terrible, bad behaviour person and all this type of thing. But even now, they never ever gave Salmond the benefit of the doubt. They never ever said, and even they still don't say, that Salmond, deserved, deserved the benefit of the doubt. Well, we'll see what these allegations come up to and see whether that happened or not. Never defended him, say, I've known him really well. He never said something like, well, he may have had appropriate behaviour, but not criminal behaviour. Anything like that. They never stood up for Salmond. And they're supposed to be, these are people who seen Salmond as her mentors, as their mentor. So, I mean, what do you think of that type of thing? With this type of just the idea that they never just like, well, you're the past and we're current now. Mark.
Yeah, I think it's what the SNP do. What they do, they get rid of. Doesn't matter who it was. There's no loyalty. There's no actual loyalty whatsoever within the SNP. Once it's done, it's done. We've seen that now with Sturgeon. The attacks on Sturgeon from within the party about leadership. So I think they went after him. He was conceived as a threat. They saw him as a threat. I think Sturgeon definitely saw him as a threat, and they wanted to silence him. They wanted to discredit him. They wanted to get him out of the way. And we've seen that with Sturgeon many a times. If you cross Sturgeon when she was First Minister, she would go after you. She would go after. She's done it with journalists, and she's done it with Salmond. There was no loyalty whatsoever. But none of these people spoke up when Salmond was First Minister.
Yes.
He was God when he was First Minister. He was God. He was the chosen one. They all stood behind him. They all backed him 100% when he was First Minister. So they must have. I've been walking around with their eyes closed and their ears closed and not,
Well, it's a
not
bit of a
paying
weird.
attention.
It's a bit of a weird one, right? Because in one hand you say, okay, you can say that what you just said. They didn't notice this stuff was going on, but was there really anything going on?
No,
This is the thing. I mean, touching somebody's hair, or okay, it's some an inappropriate one. 10 minutes with a staff member, okay, it's not the end of the world. That's the thing. Anyway, keeping up the attacks is a documentary focused a little bit on Salmond's working style. That those interviewed, almost all friends of Sturgeon, accused Salmond of outbursts of temper that were out of control. Linda Fabiani, who served as his culture minister from 2007 to 2009, alleged Alex would just let rip. The first time it happened to me, I was so shocked. If I'm being honest, I was a little bit tearful on the way home. And then Sturgeon stuck her knife in. She said, you wanted to be in the room with him, but he would have outbursts. His temper sometimes was out of control, ran away from him. Those of us who'd worked with him for so long were used to how he was. And so, I mean, again, it's like this was the extent of the allegations. Like Salmond was angry. Now, I'm no fan of Salmond. I don't like the guy, right? I think he's smug. He's divisive. He's ego-driven, all that. And of course, don't like it. But these attacks are just actually pathetic. None on him anyway. And so Salmond didn't like it. He was saying that they were all attacking him, I think he should actually just have kept quiet about this. Alex Salmond attacks venomous and biased BBC documentary. He says, for any independent supporter to trust a single word the BBC or associated organisation says is one of the great mistakes in life. Well, they were saying that he was a bee's knees. Of course, they were promoting him and interviewing him on his way up the greasy pole. Do you think the media has treated Salmond unfairly, Mark?
Yeah, I do actually. I do.
Okay,
think,
all right, okay.
I do think during the trial and I do think he is treated a little bit unfairly, but I think the attacks from the SNP, they're taking the word of the SNP more than what he's.
Well, that's definitely true.
So yes. I do think, but again, I don't think we know the full story, do we? I don't think we've really got the full facts of what has actually gone on with Salmond during his time as First Minister. We've heard a lot of rumours. We've heard a lot of the stories about him, about his drinking, about his temper. We've heard all that. But again, it goes back to during his time, nobody stood up. And you can't tell me that Sturgeon is that weak where she wouldn't stand up and say something if he was inappropriate.
Right.
I think if she didn't, then it just shows you what kind of a character she is. But I don't see that. I think she would have stood up if he'd have been completely inappropriate. I really do.
Well, I mean, you said I think you did a video on Humza. Humza was also trying to say that he was angry. If you actually read Humza's or watch Humza on the show, he doesn't actually say, and it sounds like hearsay to me. What he says is rather than his actual experience. But what do you think about that Humza's intervention?
I think Humza is looking for a fight with just about anybody that's irrelevant. That's in the public eye at the moment. He's irrelevant. He's picked a fight with Elon Musk. He's now picking a fight with Alex Salmond. He's just wanting to be relevant again, and I think that's.
No, he was barely relevant at the time. To be honest, yes.
I don't think Salmond even. I think there could be more into this. I think there're going to be more fights between them two, because I don't think they're the best of friends, or I don't think they've ever been the best of friends. I don't think Salmond even knew who Humza was when he was First Minister. I think he was irrelevant then, and he's irrelevant now.
Yeah, for those who are saying that there's still a lot to go, indeed there is. During the weekend, Fergus Ewing said there was a conspiracy to jail. It was in the Sunday Mail, conspiracy to jail Salmond here. Now, this is, heady stuff. This is coming out a bit more. But again, was no mention of the names, because, of course, name anyone, it is illegal. But he said I find this campaign against Alex to be grotesque, bizarre, unprecedented, and almost unbelievable. That's a good set of adjectives, I think. Recently, a very senior public servant was revealed to be facing an investigation by the police into his conduct. I cannot comment on that matter, but there are, in my view, at least 6 senior officials in the Scottish Civil Service and current or former special advisors who have the gravest questions to answer. Now, I don't understand why the civil service isn't doing an investigation. That's a serious claim.
Yeah,
Right.
I think he must have some information and have evidence to go to a paper, a news article, and do a story on this and accuse 6 senior officials in the government and advisors in the government and other people, to accuse them, even though he's not named them, but to accuse
Yes,
them.
you'd be
He
correct.
must have, and say that, well, I was a minister at the time, I saw this, I know
Right.
this. And
Okay.
I think he must have information, or else he's opening himself up for a legal challenge, isn't he? Even though he doesn't
Yes.
name him. So he must have something, Ewing, because he's not a daft man. I think he,
No.
No, he's setting the
not just
scene.
he's not just gonna say something without having the facts to back it up.
Yeah, well, he says that he calls it Scotland's greatest political scandal. Could well be the one of the UK's greatest political scandal, if true. Of course, this is the thing. I go on about this quite a lot. The accusers in Salmond court case lost, right? Their claims were not accepted as crimes. There was no crime. Right? There might have been inappropriate behaviour, but there was no crime committed by Alex Salmond. And there was no crime, therefore, no crime committed against them. So why do they still have anonymity? This is really wrong. They should not have anonymity because no crime happened.
Well,
Right? I mean, that's the thing.
what they'll say is it's to protect people coming forward. They don't want people not to come forward.
Yes, but also gives cover to people who will lie.
Who come forward and lie.
Right, that's right. So actually, it should be on its each case should be on its merits. Now, Ewing though has vowed to reveal their names as soon as Holyrood gets parliamentary privilege powers, which are supposed to be given to Scotland by the Labour government. Now, the Labour government could enact that in next afternoon, tomorrow, and maybe they should, and then it will all come out, because they won't be able to stop it then. Well, the truth is going to come out, isn't it, Mark?
Well, without a doubt, it's going to come out. It might come out in the civil case that Salmond's took up, unless they do a deal. But I don't think I personally don't think, from all the information I've got, is that he wants a deal. I think the civil case is something like £3 million that he's asking for. But I think the money is irrelevant. I think he wants the information to come out.
Yeah, I think it has to come out, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think the sooner the better, because I think we all need to know what's gone on during this time, because
Yes.
They are the leaders of the country, whether we like it or not. They are the First Minister and the officials. And if there's been a conspiracy to lock an opponent up, a political opponent, that I don't think I've ever seen that within the UK. I don't think there's ever been a case of this in the UK. And it's like Russia. Putin does that with his opponents.
Yes.
So I think it's huge, this story, and if proved, and if the information comes out, I think there's going to have to be a lot of questions to be answered, and I think legal questions need to be answered on this.
Oh, absolutely, of course.
I think also that one of the worrying things about this is if they're accusing civil servants. Now, the civil servants will stay in place even when the politicians change. So if these are corrupt civil servants, then goodness knows what they would do with, if it's going to be Labour that's in power, or, we don't know what they're going to do.
Well, it calls into question the whole veracity of the Parliament itself. If it's allowing this type of unchecked
it means it's
power,
systemic.
Yeah, unchecked systemic abuse to happen. Now, to wrap this section up, let's hope that they don't reunite Salmond and Sturgeon after a period, 15 years. Both become elder statements, if Salmond's still alive then. Become elder statements and do a reunion tour like Oasis. That would not be good.
I don't think the ticket sales will be the same.
Don't look back in anger. They might say, Sturgeon might say, Anyway, we did all that last week.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, good segment there about what's going on, what actually happened, and what this is about. This will come out, and it will be. I think the truth cannot be hidden. Cannot be hidden. It will come out, and we will be here to tell you all about it, to have a look at all the details anyway. But the thing to remember in this is a lot of some Alex Salmond supporters will say, "Oh, nothing happened. He was not guilty. He's proven not guilty." That doesn't mean he didn't do inappropriate behaviour.
He wasn't proven innocent.
Yes. Well, that's a different matter. It's a different thing. So anyway, we'll take a break. We'll come back with Mark Zegfeld, who's going to be talking about Labour cutting the winter fuel payments for pensioners and how it affects Scotland. Come back in just a second. Right, Mark, you're up.
Yeah, the winter fuel allowance. Now, I think Tuesday's vote, I think it was a pretty shameful day for the UK. They took away the winter fuel allowance of £200 to £300 to 10 million, affects 10 million pensioners. I found it quite staggering. I found it really shameful that we would do this. But it cost at the saving this year, they're saving 1.4 billion, they say, and future years they're going to save 1.5 billion through this. Now, in Scotland, this affects 900,000 pensioners, but we've already been allocated the money for this year. £160 million it would cost.
Okay.
Now, it's the Scottish government who have decided that they are going to follow Labour's plan, and they're going to stop it as well. But what we've seen from the SNP is spin and deflection as usual, blaming Labour, saying that they don't have the money, they've lost the money, the money's gone back, and it's not us, it's Labour that's done this. Now, 160 million it costs. If you look at the waste that Scotland have, Angus Robinson's department has still got his £350 million budget. He hasn't lost a penny in the latest cuts that the SNP have done. He's still got his money. The foreign offices, we could go through a whole list of things that they're wasting money, the bottle scheme, all sorts. So,
yeah, ferries. It goes on and on.
Yeah, so they could find that 160 million quite easily. They really
Didn't
could.
they find like 100 million down the sofa a couple of years ago? Remember?
When they need it, they can find it. They've got all the freebies, the bus passes, they could find this. But again, it's the Scottish government who have made the decision for Scotland's pensioners, not Westminster, not Labour. It's the SNP.
Yeah,
so
and of course they've made this decision based on the fact that that you can't pay for everything. You have to make choices. I mean, this is the thing that people don't seem to realise, that the government is an unlimited money tree, and that's able to pay every single entitlement that it can. And I think to some extent, this winter fuel payment is Labour trying to grasping the nettle and saying this is the kind of thing that we are going to do to try and get spending under control. Whether we agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. That's what I think they're trying to do, and get all the pain in early, because then when it comes a few years down and we come to like local elections and so on, they'll be able to give us some good news, apparently. But I think it's not been handled very well politically, of course.
Well, I think it's a scandal, because it's costing 1.4 billion this year. Now, if they cut the foreign aid, if they stop £8 million a day for hotels, they're now releasing prisoners early and putting them in hotels.
Yeah,
low 1-star hotels. They're wasting so much money, and there's so many things they could cut instead of looking after the pensioners that have paid into the system all their lives. Now, a society, and I keep saying this, a society is judged on how you look after your elderly. And is this what we want to be judged on? stopping the £200, £300 payment, that could literally, families, pensioners could be sat there saying, well, do I put the heating on, or do I feed us, or do we buy food?
Yeah,
That's
do we
a
eat?
choice that some
Eat or
pensioners
eat?
could have because of this. And I think we could find that 1.5 billion. We really could, as a country. We're not a poor country. We could find that
Yeah, well,
1.5 billion
I
somewhere.
think though,
We
ultimately
have-
though, the principle of things being mean tested is not wrong. We have the situation here. Stephen Daisley wrote a very good article about this in the Spectator, and the real significance of the winter fuel row, and basically saying, yeah, it is a drop in the ocean. I mean, the benefits. I think somewhere in there he says that. I think the welfare bill in the UK is 300 billion pounds, something like that, right? But I think the thing though is that a quarter of it says here where was it? Or last year it talks about that British pensioners live. 1 in 4 British pensioners live in a millionaire household, and the median individual wealth of a 65 to 69-year-old is almost 15 times that of a 25 to 29-year-old. So basically, the median wealth of a pensioner is £355,000 compared with a 20 to 29-year-old at £24,000. It says many people over 40 will refuse to believe you, and most under 40s will sigh in resignation. And the point here is that it's not, of course there are help people in need, but don't be giving money to millionaires. I mean, that would seem a very basic principle, whether you're a Conservative or Labour or not, that you don't do that. Now, where you draw the line, of course, is the issue. If the issue is, right, okay, well, you've made it so that people who are in need are not getting this payment, then fair enough. But I think in principle, I think most Conservatives certainly would agree that means-tested benefits are correct.
Yeah, but it's what you've said, Mark, is where do you draw the line? Because at the moment, if you're a pensioner who has some savings, and it can be a very modest amount, I'm not exactly sure how much it is, but say £15,000. If you've got £15,000 that you've saved through your life, then you're not eligible for any of this. And I would say that someone with £15,000 of savings does need the money, does need the winter fuel payment. If you're talking about people with millions in the bank, that's a whole different matter.
Yeah, but you can also they also judge it on he's living in £1 million house. Well, that could be that could be in London, where £1 million house, they might live in £1 million house, but they don't have millions to spend or don't have millions in the bank. The price of a house.
I know, but you still got
irrelevant.
assets. Nonetheless, you still have assets.
So you have to sell your assets.
Sell your house.
Well,
yeah.
sell
You
your
have to
house.
sell your
I mean,
house.
if you're living in £1 million house, that you shouldn't be needing a winter fuel payment. That's what it comes down to. I think. I don't see how anyone in £1 million house should be, whether it's in London or wherever, should need a £1 million should need a winter fuel payment. I just don't see that. So they can get a reverse mortgage even. For example, there's all kinds of things they can do. So I think we have to say, look, you can't afford everything. But what Stephen Daisley talks about in this article is that there's such a backlash just even to this small amount, right? And that is everything going to be like this? Is that when everyone says you're taking away my entitlement, then, well, are you really entitled to this thing? This is the question. Everyone wants a handout. With someone else, there's a good line in it actually. Where is it? I've got to try and find it. If I can find it here. An entitlement, he says, in the grammar of British social attitudes, an entitlement is something I get. A benefit is something you get. A handout is something they get. Taxpayers' hard-earned money is something asylum seekers get. Right, so this is the idea. It's to some extent the perception of how we deal with things. And how is Labour, for example, going to do these other things if they're getting hammered on this issue with the pensioners? I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's an easy solution to this, perhaps. And I know that you're very for that, Mark. But for pensioners, and I do think there is something to be said for people who've paid into the system all their lives and frugal and all that as well. But can we just give the money to the people who need it, really?
Well, here's Alex. He's bringing me up to date on what it actually is. He says, if a household income is over £11,500 plus £6,000 savings, and a house worth £150,000 gets nothing. That's too low.
Right.
That is far too low.
That's far too low. It needs to be a lot higher than that. It needs to be, the income, I think, has to be maybe twice that. The savings has to be maybe 6 times that, and the house has to be worth, like three times that at least, I would say.
But I think another part of it, though, is just to finish off in this thing, perhaps this section, is that people. It's not just that we say that pensioners as a group should get it. But surely some of these people who are receiving it should say, I'd rather not get this, and actually, give the money to the people who really, really need it. We don't see very much of that. As I mentioned there, I think it seems like, entitlement is something I get, and benefits is something that you get. It's a little bit like just this type of handout culture that we've built up in general in the UK, that everyone deserves a piece of the pie. Well, sometimes you don't deserve a piece of the pie. You might think you deserve a piece of the pie, but you don't. That's kind of my thing on it. Mark, can finish off this section.
Yeah, I just think it's not just I think it's unfair. I think pensioners deserve to get this money because they paid into the system all their lives, and they're looking at migrants coming in and getting hotels and the welfare system. That I do understand what you're saying. The welfare system is far too big, and we have got a culture of I want my share of the pie, and I understand that, but I think we're hitting the wrong people. I think we need to get people off the backsides and start working rather than sitting thinking, well, I'm better off on benefits. That needs to change first before we take away from pensioners who deserve this winter fuel allowance.
I think I'll definitely agree with that, and I will agree with the comments there. I think we have to look.
There's quite a few comments against.
I don't. Yeah, I know. I don't know why though. I don't know why they would prioritize this first of all. It was always going to be an issue dealing with this type of this particular thing. But really, I think, as you say, we need to cut down these international aid, unnecessary international aid, and asylums costs, and all this, which is really a big drain on our economy. All right, okay, some spirited discussion there. I don't know if there is a necessarily right answer. Well, that's what I'm saying anyway. Okay, to get myself out of this situation. All right, next up, Mary's going to be talking about Scotland's outrageous alcohol deaths. We'll be back with that in just a second.
Right, before I start, Mark, can you please make sure that you do the captions?
That's a very good point. Yes, okay.
You told me to remind you tonight.
Good. I would have forgotten.
Right, first I get my caption and then I get my comments,
right,
okay?
Where is it though? I don't know where it is. Oh, it's way at the top, that's why. Okay. Oh, look at that. There you go.
Thank you in advance. Okay, so at this time of year, I start to dread the latest numbers being released for drug and alcohol deaths in Scotland, because each year they get worse. And the Scottish Government, that's the SNP, they continue to bury their heads in the sand, pledging to just keep doing what they've always been doing, despite all the evidence showing that what they have been doing isn't working and is in fact making the situation worse. Numbers don't lie, but of course it's not the numbers in themselves which are shocking and desperately sad. It's the number of lives lost, the number of children who've lost a parent or parents, the number of parents who've lost a son or daughter, and the number of grieving family members who've lost a loved one to alcohol or drugs. Just a few weeks ago, we learned that in 2023, there were 1,197 suspected drug deaths in Scotland. That's 10% more than 2022, by far the highest rate in Europe, 3.5 times higher than England and Wales. And the Scottish Government continues, despite the best advice from people like Anne-Marie Ward, with a strategy of handing out methadone like sweeties, instead of investing in rehab facilities and using the lived experience of people who have climbed their way out of drug addiction, because they refuse to listen, they refuse to take responsibility. Now, yesterday we learned that the deaths from alcohol in Scotland are at the highest level in 15 years. There were 1,277 alcohol deaths in Scotland in 2023, the highest since 2008. And while there were over 16 deaths per 100,000 people in the UK, Scotland had the highest UK rate at nearly 23 deaths per 100,000 people. That's 50% higher. So this is clear evidence that the SNP's fanatical minimum unit pricing policy does not work. The alcohol minimum unit pricing, of course. In fact, the minimum unit price for alcohol in Scotland the minimum unit price for alcohol in Scotland is just about to increase from the current price of 50 pence per unit to 65 pence per unit from the end of this month. It's not working. So let's double down and do more of it, is what the SNP says.
Yes, it's crazy.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, why do you think that's that? They've no evidence. I think what happened before with the was Anne-Marie Ward actually did some research on it, right? And she found out that of all the papers, well, 15 research papers written about the effects of the minimum unit pricing.
Yep.
And that what the Scottish government selected one, and it wasn't actually real. That one was like a forecast or something like that.
Well, largely what they do is the argument these days from the SNP is, well, it would have been worse without minimum unit
but
pricing.
that's just,
but you can't measure that, and you can't prove it. How can you say it would have been worse? I doubt it would have been worse, because that's not what's happening in the rest of the UK.
Oh, well, there you go.
They don't have minimum unit pricing.
Right.
I spoke to Anne-Marie Ward last night about this on the space.
Yeah.
And one thing that she said was quite telling. Is she said, with this minimum unit pricing, people are now turning to drugs rather than,
Sure.
because it's cheaper to buy the drugs and buy the methadone than it is to buy a can of beer or whatever,
Well, I mean, it is, alcohol is not cheap anymore.
Well, the people who are mostly being punished, I think, with this minimum unit pricing are people like, maybe myself, who likes a glass of wine, a Sauvignon Blanc or something.
Well, actually, no, I don't think that. The people who are being punished here, the people who are dying, really, right?
Well, I mean, by the minimum, the people that it's affecting the minimum unit pricing of alcohol is affecting mainly. It's not affecting, alcoholics so much.
I think it also
puts
people in debt.
It's affecting them in the sense that as Anne-Marie said to Mark, that they're turning to drugs.
Right.
Like if you're going out and you're buying, I mean, how much is the bottle of whiskey, for example, right? Even cheap whiskey, and you could get some pills for that, and that'll last you all night. So, and it's easy. It's
just as easy.
Right.
And what it does to alcoholics as well. Alcoholics will buy the drink no matter what. They'll find the money. But what they do is the families suffer because they don't pay the rent because they're buying alcohol. Or they can't buy food because they're buying alcohol. So they will still buy the alcohol, but it will affect the families who will then get into debt because of it. That it's a bigger issue than what the Scottish government come up with a solution. They just see a headline and they put the headline up and say, look, we're fighting this by doing this. We're the first country in the world that's got minimum unit pricing. I wonder why. Do they not look and say, well, why are we the first to do this?
Well,
maybe because it doesn't work.
The UK government have said that they've got no plans for the introduction of the minimum unit pricing in England. They said that they would continue to monitor the progress in Scotland and consider the evidence of the impact. But basically, the MUP was put in place in 2018, so we've now had 6 years of it, and the rest of the UK is not adopting the policy. So they absolutely believe that it doesn't work. And another interesting thing I read today actually was an article, Ben Borland in the Scottish Daily Express.
This one here.
Yeah, he wrote an article today saying that alcohol deaths in Scotland were lower in the 70s and 80s before the nanny state got involved. He said that booze-related deaths in some part of the country have risen by more than 2,000% over the last 45 years.
Right.
So we always, if you think back to like 70s and 80s, you think, people down the pub and they're getting boozed up and, driving and everything. But actually, it's much, much, much worse now than it was then. And one of the things they talk about is that one of the reasons might be is that now people are drinking at home.
Yeah, of course.
So much drinking at home. Yeah. It used to be you did go down the pub with your mates, and you have drinks or whatever, and then stagger home or what. But now there's so much. People have so much alcohol at home.
Well, I think it's. I mean, there's a whole war in the pub, right? And I think maybe actually the pub, for all its faults, was actually a break on this kind of drinking at home with your buddies. So you go out and you drink, and it was contained. And if you were over drinking, your pals would say to you, okay, it's a bit of a laugh, but if you're really doing it, they'd look after you. Now people are sitting at home, house getting drunk,
Every night.
every night, but they're not doing that because the thing is, it's too expensive to do that now. So it's much easier just to say, right, okay, we'll have some pills then, because you're doing it at home anyway. You can't do pills like these type of, downers and whatever it is generally, street
the pub,
Valium and all
yeah.
that. Can't go to the pub with all that. It's not social. Right?
You can just do a booze run to Carlisle and back.
Well, but these people,
and buy the booze.
We don't have that
people
close.
don't have car. These people who are affected at this level don't have cars. They don't have. They're isolated in many cases, and they don't have any support. And this policy has been driven by middle class folk who have been who have been in some quango or multiple quangos who have been told to create a headline essentially for the Scottish government. And they keep giving this advice. Scottish government, based on advice by such and such charities that the Scottish government funds. There's this whole middle class thing going on of these people who are thinking they're doing stuff for poor folk, and they're not doing anything.
Do-gooders.
Yeah, supermarkets will be rubbing their hands, indeed, because the money goes to them as well.
That's. I mean, even if they'd taken the extra money that they were raising and put it into rehab facilities and actually helping people.
They're not that smart.
But it doesn't. It goes to Tesco. It goes to Waitrose. It goes to Sainsbury's. They get the money. But the question here is, the SNP. So year after year after year, they're just doing exactly the same things.
Well,
they've stuck their heads in the sand and they refuse to accept the evidence. So is it just because they don't have any ideas of what else to do?
They're listening to the wrong people. If they'd listened to Anne-Marie Ward, this problem would be a lot better than what it is.
Yeah.
But they don't listen to Anne-Marie Ward because she criticises the government.
Yeah. Well, that's the curse of the thing. Of course, they're not interested in competence. We know that anyway. Mary, well done for bringing this issue to the show. Right. Okay. Things you can do to support this show. Well, we're supposed to do a donation message earlier on, but I missed it out. So if you do like this show and do like what we're trying to do here, try to bring these issues to light and have some spirited discussion about the issues, then from an internationalist perspective, then please do donate to the show. You can do a super thanks or super sticker on YouTube, and you can go to our website and do a one-time or monthly donation there. Anything you put in is appreciated, even if it was just a couple of pounds a month. Is great. It's fantastic. Very happy with any donation. We're trying to get our power up to go through to 2026, or perhaps for an earlier election, which is something that we may discuss. Anyway, right. The other things you can do, of course, you can buy a T-shirt from our shop. There we go. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can do a like. You can tell your friends about us, and you can do all of the above, which makes us feel extremely happy and fulfilled. ! Underlined. Coming up, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It is the highlight of the week. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay.
Right, so my Zoomer this week is Sean Clerkin of the Scottish Resistance, who today stormed the offices of the UK government in Glasgow. Well, perhaps stormed is an overstatement. Mr. Clerkin, who is unhappy about the Labour government's cut to the winter heating payment, went to the UK government office today to try to hand over an open letter about Labour's policy to two somewhat nonplussed doormen in front of the office. I have a bit of video of this. I'll just show you the first 30 or 40 seconds.
This will be good.
They want to hand the letter in. This is a letter for Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. And we want to hand the letter in to the British government. We live in a democracy.
So are you refusing to take the letter for what? Could you find out, please?
I'll find out.
But at the moment, they seem to be refusing to take the British government are refusing to take this letter, which many Daily Record and Sun readers who are going to suffer this winter, and other people who read other newspapers and who watch television, they're going to lose out. So the bottom line is that so far refusing to take this letter, which in a democracy we're allowed to do, to hand in. We're not occupying the place, we're only handing in a letter. It's called democracy. Think of all the money they've earned over the years and given to the British Exchequer, given to the Chancellor for through the taxes and national insurance that they paid. These people basically have paid in all their lives to this. It's not something they're getting for free. They have worked for it. They are owed it. It should be paid to them. Why not tax the rich and the wealthy, the people?
Right, anyway, it gets into a bit of a rant there. Of course, he's doing all this despite...
Could you not...
Well, go ahead, Mary.
Can you not just put a stamp on it and just put it in a post box like anyone else?
Oh, well, that's the thing. Maybe you could think of my point. Despite the policies we discussed earlier also being enacted by the SNP, it's devolved. But this gives me a good opportunity to remind you, as some of you have already put in the comments, about Mr. Clerkin's previous exploits. Now, I have this one. When they went to, he was part of the Scottish resistance team that reported an international war crime at a local police station. Here we go.
Sorry. I wish to report a crime. So this is being filmed, by the way, so you know this, and being recorded. So you are saying to me that you're not wishing to take a report of a crime that we believe has been committed.
Can they identify themselves?
No, we don't report a crime to an MP. We report a crime to the police. That's what I'm trying to tell you, and you're refusing to take the details of a crime I'm reporting to you. That's what you're doing. So you're refusing to take.
Anyway, it goes on. That one goes on like that. I couldn't find it. The other one, of course, where they're actually in the office going, we are wanting to report an international war crime. Now, he's also tried to...
At the local police station.
Yes. It's hilarious stuff. And then one of his other greatest hits was this one here. He tried to burn the Union flag in Arthur's Seat in a demand for Scottish independence, but he couldn't actually set fire to it because it was inflammable, non-flammable material.
Right, it was non-flammable
material. So I think he's removed that video from the internet. It was quite amusing if you can find it. Anyway, I was going to advise Sean to use the Royal Mail next time, but he probably doesn't like anything that is
with
royal.
The Queen's head on it, that's
Yes.
true. Or the King's head.
Perhaps as he could maybe use Every or some such courier service. Who knows? Anyway, so for trying to...
You don't just give mail to the doorman.
I know, these two guys are like, what? It's nothing to do with us. No.
A letter bomb or something?
I just work here. Exactly. It could be in.
They don't know what it is, do they? They don't know.
Anthrax in there.
You get a strange guy at your door, like, here, take this package. You're like,
but they don't know who he is. And they don't know what's inside there. There could be anything.
It's dangerous.
So obviously, they're not going to take it for security reasons, are they?
Yes. That said, I have to say, Clerkin's
they're not the mail department.
Yeah, they're not. Yes. The Clerkin is also, I have to say though, that Clerkin is also responsible for starting the branch farm investigation. He reported the SNP for taking his part of his £600,000 that was donated, that was supposed to be ring fenced, and ended up being woven through the accounts and maybe in a camper van or something like that. Anyway, so he did, strangely enough, he has helped Sturgeon, the downfall of Sturgeon. But he seems to have a thing about going to places and, trying to get this action like on the phone.
Well, long may he keep doing so. It's funny.
Comedy gold.
You couldn't make that up.
No, you can't make
You're
that
gonna,
up.
It's like a parody thing.
Yeah, you're going to have him on the show because that'd be funny.
But I did notice he was wearing a suit in that one there. He didn't have his Scottish Resistance T-shirt. Maybe he's almost looked respectable. Right, but there's some strong competition this week, I have to say. Mark, you are going to be up next.
Well, my nomination is again from Marco Polo, who sent me a video. Now, it's Jenny Minto, the Minister for Public Health. She's responsible for what Mary was talking about, the alcohol deaths. And I don't really have to say too much about this because there's a video, and I'd like you to listen to this video, and I think it makes my case for me. So if you just listen to this.
Okay. Well, we've got a full thing here, but we'll probably cut it about halfway through.
But your target is to reduce alcohol deaths. You've failed, manifestly.
We are working to try and reduce the deaths with the various policies
and you failed
that we
because
have.
there's the highest number of deaths in 15 years. You failed.
I don't believe that is the case. I think we are progressing to reduce.
Is this what success looks like to you?
As I have said, it is disappointing that we have had that level of death in Scotland due to alcohol. The Scottish Government is working and investing money to try to reduce this. We work across the board with various third sector organisations to find the best ways, the innovative ways to try and reduce alcohol deaths in Scotland.
So you're disappointed by your results?
I have said that I'm disappointed in the number of deaths due to alcohol in Scotland.
So you're disappointed by your results?
I'm disappointed with the number of deaths due to alcohol in Scotland.
Do you owe the families an apology?
I offer all the families that have lost loved ones due to alcohol my sincerest condolences and sympathies, and I hope that they understand that we are working to try to reduce the number of alcohol deaths so that other families don't experience the heartbreak that they have experienced.
Do you think you'll be able to get the number of alcohol-related deaths down next year?
That's what the investment that we have put into alcohol work
It's your ministerial brief, it's your responsibility. Do you think you'll be able to deliver that?
I am working hard with colleagues to try and deliver that.
And my God, it's just awful.
Now, this woman is a minister in the government earning £100,000 a year. And that is the way she does an interview. It was, I don't really have to...
I've never heard of her. I mean, we've been doing this show for years, and I've never heard of her.
I don't think I have to say much more to that video. I think says everything. When Marco sent it to me, and he said Zoomer of the week, and I just jumped on it and thought, this is incredible, absolutely incredible.
It's not just. I mean, it's just sad, isn't it? It's like she's like It's like. It's not like they're interviewing a minister. It's like, you remember, that video when the guy went into the BBC studio. And they thought he was the actual person going to be interviewed. It was just some guy off the street, and he was just sitting there, and they were asking him these questions and stuff. And he's like, but that's the level of it, right? It feels like they've just asked someone in the street who doesn't know very much. Actually, they've got the thing mixed up. It seems like they've maybe asked a drug addict, or an alcoholic, in full flow. What's actually going on? That's what it looks like.
It also looks like that she's had absolutely no training in media at all, because she just sat there and every question it was and it was like a minute's pause between each answer.
It was like she never expected anyone to say that it's not working, and you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over.
I have to say, the interviewer, I think Colin, maybe STV Colin, whatever his name is, did a good job there. Well, that's it's very worthy. It's very worthy, but
and I don't know, maybe Grumpy gets not happy with me. I'm not sure because he sent that to me. But Mark had jumped on it before me, so I had to take my turn.
You've got
but please keep sending me recommendations.
Right, Mary, you're going to do yours, and here it comes.
Well, maybe I should have gone first actually, because mine isn't funny.
Oh,
mine is just a bit sad. I think my nomination for Zoomer of the Week, and Mark, please do my caption and comments again.
Yes, good point.
My nomination for Zoomer of the Week is Police Scotland, who are allowing rapists to identify as women, which they say is to foster a strong sense of belonging. I mean, FFS. I'm not going to say it out loud, but FFS. So, Police Scotland record the sex of anyone who comes into contact with them according to how they present or how they self-declare. No evidence of biological sex or gender recognition certificate is required, which I think is kind of fair enough, unless they've committed a crime. But even people who have committed rape. Anyway, in effect, that means that a man arrested for rape is able to simply claim that he's a woman and expect to be treated as one. His alleged crime would be recorded as being committed by a female, and the police and the courts would refer to him using female pronouns. If convicted, he might be sent to a women's prison. He would be recorded in the crime statistics as female and would skew all the official... I mean, if this happens a lot, it skews all the official figures, right? So we all remember Adam Graham, who started identifying as Isla Bryson, brought down Sturgeon's GDR bill. So Isla Bryson was waiting to stand trial after being charged with 2 rapes. He was arrested and recorded as male, but was allowed to be processed in court as a woman and initially sent to a women's prison. Basically the ultimate fox in the henhouse, if you ask me. And had Bryson claimed a trans identity ahead of being charged, his offences would have been recorded as committed by a woman.
I mean, how is that? It's just nonsense, isn't it?
Well, for Police Scotland to claim that the policy fosters a strong sense of belonging, it's extremely offensive. It suggests an organisation that doesn't take the interests of women seriously at all. And a spokeswoman, for Women Scotland said, "We thought we were beyond being shocked and dismayed by the treatment of rape victims in the Scottish judicial system, but we never expected that Police Scotland would rate a rapist's strong sense of belonging above the law and above the impact of such a grotesque lie on women who've already suffered so much at the hands of an abuser."
Yeah.
So if you're in a women's prison and you've got these basically male rapists who are identifying as women that are going to be put in beside you.
Well, I think that's one part. Of course, that's bad, but think about all the statistics. There's this. It's just going to skew the statistics. Of female prisoners and make them appear perhaps more vile and more towards male violence. Right.
Well, I mean, if you have a transgender person, if you're a female in prison and you have a transgender person who has, defrauded the local corner shop or something like that, that's one thing, right? And they get put in prison, and they might be in a prison. But we're talking about rapists, men who rape women, being put in beside women. That's why there was so much outcry before. But for Police Scotland to be saying that putting what they see as the rights of one of these rapists and this feeling of belonging is we lose all respect for Police Scotland.
Yeah, it's really terrible. Yes.
Anyway, I told you it was a serious
quality comment there from Alan. They have their bits, Mary. Okay, well, that's it. This is the thing. It's not. It's just all this idea that be kind. They're trying to this idea of virtue signalling. Be kind, and then it's like the people who are actually who need help are just left behind.
Yeah, well, there's exceptions to being kind, and exceptions should be made for rapists.
Yeah, certainly. Mary decides you can says, please feel free to vote for your own nomination. You've got Sean Clerkin, Jenny Minto, and Police Scotland.
Right. Well, I think mine's is a pretty serious thing, and it's ridiculous, and it has to end, this Police Scotland thing. But I don't think it's a Zoomer of the Week, to be honest. So I am torn between Sean Clerkin, who is an absolute world-class Zoomer, I have to say. And then there's Jenny Minto, who I'd never actually seen before today. I think Sean's going to be entertaining us for quite some time. So I'm going to go with Jenny Minto.
Yes, I think it's a good
I
decision
think Jenny
there,
Minto
Mary.
is the winner because I think she is the Zoomer of the week.
Right, Miss Minto or Mrs. Minto, I don't know.
Ms.
Mrs. Minto, you are our Zoomer of the week. Mary,
Well done, Mark
Oh,
Z.
yes.
Well, it's Marco for the second week running.
Right, okay.
Marco chooses them, yeah.
Well, he's always on there getting
He's
them,
got all
first
the
of
clips,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's amazing for getting the clips and a great resource. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For all your help with that. Sometimes we don't get a chance to say that very often. Okay, right. We are so happy to have you with us on the show every week in Scotland's #1 politics chat. We will see you again, same time, place next Wednesday, which will be the 10th anniversary of the independence. Actually, 10th anniversary of the breakup of the UK referendum. And this is what it was actually about. One of the things I noticed in that show last night was it was always about the independence referendum. No, it's the breakup of the UK referendum. Anyway, so we need to keep reminding people of that. Anyway, the thought for the week is that I think one of the worst traits of our time is entitlement. Everyone thinks the world owes them a living, although some people do deserve help. As Mark Twain said, it doesn't. The world doesn't owe you a living. It was here long before you ever came around. But it is true that some people are in need. So let's concentrate on them first and stop giving time and resources to those who don't. Message certainly to the SNP, who seem to be ignoring the real problems that we do have. Thank you very much, Catherine, for your support. Karen, and everyone else for all your messages. They do come in after the show as well. So thank you all for that. We will see you again next week. Huge thanks to Mary and to Mark for co-hosting with me tonight.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye now.
And we'll see you again. All right. Take care.